Welcome to Surviving Wokeland with Ethan Quinn, a channel dedicated to exposing and explaining the ideology driving wokeness. While wokeness pretends to be about inclusion and acceptance, in reality, it is incredibly divisive. The woke narrative is that certain groups oppress other groups. It thereby creates conflict, rather than fostering inclusion. The most common woke narrative is that white people oppress black people, and that society is systemically racist. Last week, a 30-year-old black man named Jordan Neely died on a New York subway train. Neely, who had a decade-long history of violent behavior on the subway, died after being put into a chokehold by former Marine Daniel Penny. Penny tried to restrain Neely after he started acting erratically and threatening fellow passengers. Several passengers had called 911 before Penny intervened. Penny's attempt to restrain Neely while waiting for the police to arrive ended in the tragic death of the 30-year-old. Jordan Neely should not have died. That is not up for debate. But now, the very people whose policies led to his death are attempting to capitalize on it by manipulating the events into a matter of race. But Jordan Neely did not die because he was black. He died because the left's policies on crime failed to protect him and the citizens of New York. The left continues to pretend that acting against black people who commit crimes is racist, while also claiming that racism is to blame for high crime rates in black communities. Neely had a long history of violent behavior, drug abuse, and mental illness. For years, Jordan Neely has been on the city's top 50 list, a list of homeless people living on the street whom officials consider most urgently needing assistance and treatment. Yet, despite being on this list, and having numerous run-ins with the law, Jordan Neely was not helped. Between 2013 and 2021, Jordan Neely was arrested a staggering 42 times. In August 2015, he was caught dragging a 7-year-old girl down the street in what has been described as an attempted kidnapping. He pleaded guilty to endangering the welfare of a child and was sentenced to only 4 months in prison. On June 27, 2019, Neely assaulted Mexican immigrant Filemon Castillo Baltazar. Without warning or reason, Neely punched the man in the head. A month earlier, he struck a man in the face so hard that he broke his nose. That incident took place on the platform of the Broadway Lafayette Station, the same station where he passed away last week. In November 2021, Jordan Neely broke the nose of a 67-year-old woman when he punched her in the face. For that assault, he was put on the Alternative to Incarceration program and sent to a drug treatment facility. Neely was meant to spend 15 months at the facility, but was able to walk out after only 13 days. After leaving the facility and skipping his compliance court day, a warrant for his arrest was issued on February 23 this year. Between the issuing of the arrest warrant and his death, Neely had other interactions with the police. On April 8, police ejected Neely from the train after he urinated in public. However, the arrest warrant was not executed. Clearly, Jordan Neely was a danger to himself and the public. If the people now holding Jordan Neely up as a martyred saint had cared about him, he would not have been on that train. Jordan Neely should have been sent to a mental health facility for proper treatment. Ironically, the same people who opposed incarceration for the man arrested 42 times are now demanding the imprisonment of a man who has never been arrested. From the video and witness testimony, it's apparent that Daniel Penny was not trying to kill Neely. Whether he used excessive force while trying to restrain him should be the subject of an impartial investigation, but it should not be directed by political or public pressure. Daniel Penny should not be sacrificed on the altar of wokeness to appease people who continue to support policies that make no rational sense. In Ministry of Truth, I explain how the media manipulates society into accepting the woke narrative as truth. One of the ways they do this is by being selective in the stories they cover, especially regarding race and violence. The left-wing media tries desperately to create the impression that white people commit massive amounts of violent crimes against people of color. The media use individual incidents to suggest universal standards. The left manipulates society by using tragic events to their benefit, especially if they can be twisted to suggest white racism. However, this logical fallacy of correlation and causation only works one way. While the actions of any individual black person represent nothing about the black community, and that is how it should be, the actions of any white person prove the system of white supremacy. This double standard is ignored or explained with terms like white privilege and institutional power.
Through some of the confession of Taj Matthews, who admitted to taking part in the homicide, that they did want to commit a murder that day, and specifically they've ruled out Hispanics, and they said it was going to be a white person. within a couple blocks of their residence, or their starting point, they did find Mr. Herr out working on a mailbox doing what he does, and shot him in the back.
Police say Hare was working maintenance at a home on Georgetown Drive when 23-year-old Taj Matthews and 25-year-old Maurice Holmes drove by in this silver Mercedes and shot Hare in the driveway. 3 hours later, detectives found the Mercedes, then arrested Matthews and Holmes on a charge of first-degree murder.
In reality, however, violent crime in the West is mainly intraracial, meaning race groups are more dangerous to themselves than to each other. In my book, I break down the FBI crime statistics to show that the narrative of white on black violence is nothing more than a blatant lie. A black person is 10 times more likely to be killed by a black person than by a white person. And the murder rate of white victims by black perpetrators is almost double that of black victims by white perpetrators. The truth is that white people are not a danger to black people, and the statistics prove this. In the same year, black people killed 88.5% of black victims, 6,948. That means 1 out of every 6,188 black people killed another black person. This extremely high rate means that statistically, a black person is 45 times more likely to murder a black person than a white person is. We could look at it another way. A black person is 45 times safer with a white person, a rather strange thing for a systemically racist nation. Jordan Neely is another example of how black lives only matter to the woke when they can use their deaths for political gain. That is all I have for today. Please like and subscribe, and join me again tomorrow as we learn how to survive woke land together. Until then, this is Ethan Quinn saying, stay free.